And joining us now, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. He's Chief International Analyst for NBC News and former Chief of Staff at the CIA and Department of Defense. Jeremy Bash is with us as well.
So, Admiral, we'll move the border security issue to the side, though I must say I've always been very conservative on border security. I believe if you come to the United States, you should come here legally. And I think our borders need to be controlled. We have a chance to do it. And Mike Johnson doesn't want to do it because Donald Trump doesn't want to do it. Let's talk about what's happening overseas and what Mike Johnson, who has voted pro-Putin on every single Ukraine aid bill since he's been in Congress. Let's talk about Ukraine. If this funding is killed again, how dire is the situation? And sadly, I hate to be asking this, but what message does it send to our friends, and I think more importantly, our enemies alike?
Yeah, let's actually start with border as follows. The border, solving it is a national security issue in terms not only of controlling our border, which we need to do, but also because these other aid packages are linked to it. And it's Ukraine, it's Taiwan, and it's Israel. All of them are part of this package. And if that crumbles in front of us, the consequences will be significant in each of those venues. So now let's shift to the Middle East and Israeli aid alongside that Ukrainian aid. Of the two, Israel is fighting a smaller war in a dominant position. They will continue on, but they need the aid that is part of this package. But where it gets dire, your word, and it's an accurate one, Joe, is Ukraine. We are scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of the ammunition, the replacement tanks, the additional armored personnel carriers, the radar components, the anti-air systems. All of that is on the red line right now. Fortunately, our European colleagues are stepping up and can provide some of that. But this is the moment for the United States to continue what we have done successfully thus far and put a stake in the heart of Vladimir Putin. If we cut off that aid now because of our internal domestic challenges, woe be our Ukrainian colleagues and woe be our reputation globally.
I mean, think about the message that Mike Johnson and the House Republicans are sending to Putin. Yes, they're saying America will capitulate. We won't stand by our allies. We'll leave them hanging in their most dire moments. The Israelis, yes, we're more interested in helping Donald Trump than helping you, and so Hamas will take great heart by the fact that we're not funding the Israelis. And then Mike Johnson is stopping the funding for our friends in Asia. And so what signal does that send to communist China? Oh, President Xi's loving it. You know, all the people that Donald Trump says he loves and he respects, President Xi, he's very happy right now because of Mike Johnson. Donald Trump says Hezbollah is brilliant. They're really happy right now because Donald Trump and Mike Johnson and you know, and then Vladimir Putin. All of these people that he says he loves, Mike Johnson is doing their bidding right now. And for fentanyl drug runners, they've got to love Mike Johnson too. They probably have a picture of him up and, you know, in their warehouse.
Everything about Mike Johnson's behavior points to Trump and points to Trump's relationship with the situation, whether it be wanting to cozy up with Vladimir Putin or wanting things to go badly in this country now so he can come in and be president again. Jeremy Bash, voters may not be as clued in to what's going on in Ukraine and Israel, given kitchen table issues that are right in front of them, trying to just get to work and take care of the kids. At the same time, does the White House need to do more in order to get support for these wars and control or contain the narrative more as it pertains to the truth? I mean, the future of our democracy depends on this election, you could argue, but it also depends on our partners being stable.
Mika, I think the president was highly effective when he gave that Oval Office address after returning from his Middle East trip to say, look, we're going to be proposing to Congress support of democracy. Democracy globally is under fire. It's under threat. It's under strain. And if we want to stand up for the principle of supporting our interests, our friends, and our values, our democratic values, we have to be able to arm, train, and equip the Ukrainians. We have to be able to fund air defenses and military capabilities for Israel. We have to provide weapons and capabilities to Taiwan, which is under threat from China, as just referenced. And so I think the president has done an effective job, but more can be done to articulate the imperative of U.S. global leadership at this very perilous moment.
It's just unbelievable. They're putting politics in front of national security.
Everything.
Politics
and every
in
level.
front of our allies.
At the border.
Politics in front of territorial integrity. All the things Republicans once claimed they care for, now Mike Johnson and Donald Trump together are doing everything they can to undermine what conservatives have always supported. Yeah. And they're undermining national security for pure politics, and they admit it.
For Putin. When we come back in 1 minute, the United States begins carrying out airstrikes in retaliation for the drone attack in Jordan that killed 3 U.S. service members. We'll have those new developments and what happens next. 19 past the hour, the United States on Friday carried out retaliatory airstrikes targeting sites used by Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria. NBC News has been able to verify the locations of 5 of those sites. U.S. Central Command said the attack involved more than 125 precise munitions, including some fired from long-range B-1 bombers. The barrage of strikes hit more than 85 targets in 7 locations and came in response to that drone attack last month in Jordan that killed 3 American soldiers and wounded dozens more. In a statement, President Biden said the round of strikes would not be the last. Iran called the strikes a strategic mistake, saying they will, quote, have no result other than intensifying tensions and instability in the region. Meanwhile, the U.S. continues to launch attacks against the Houthis in Yemen. On Saturday, the U.S. and U.K. struck 36 targets across 13 different locations. In a joint statement, the countries said the strikes hit buried weapons storage facilities and missile systems the Houthis have used to attack ships in the Red Sea. This was the 3rd time the U.S. and U.K. have launched joint strikes against the terrorist group. Then yesterday, American forces announced they hit 5 anti-ship cruise missiles in 2 different attacks. The Pentagon says 4 of those missiles were prepared to launch against ships in the Red Sea.
So, Admiral, over the last 30, 40 years, we've gotten used to missiles being fired in the middle of the desert, and Americans get skeptical after a while that they're just being fired to send a message and no real damage done. Here, the scope, the scale of these attacks seem far beyond what we've seen in the past. Explain the strategic impact of these strikes.
I'll be happy to. I've fired any number of Tomahawk missiles from destroyers in these circumstances. There are 2 elements here, Joe. One is the deterrence piece of this, creating in the minds of the Houthis and the radical groups in Iraq and Syria, Iranian proxies, a sense of fear that more is coming. And then importantly here, this round of strikes has been also directed against Iranian personnel, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So you've got kind of the deterrence piece of this. Gosh, there's probably more where this came from. And then secondly, the tactical piece of this, actually destroying capability. Here, in particular, the series of strikes in the Red Sea area are very, very directed against missiles, radars, buried ammunition, command and control. These are taking away real capability in the Red Sea, and likewise in the training camps that are supporting these Shia militias. So I would argue, and I think any military expert would tell you, you're creating both a strategic deterrence that's hard to measure and assess, but we'll watch for reactions. But I know we are creating real tactical effect by destroying capability. This is the beginning of a campaign, and it's a smart one.
So, Jeremy, we certainly heard from a number of voices over the weekend, mostly Republicans, criticizing the attacks, suggesting that the administration waited too long. They were overly telegraphed what they were going to do. They didn't really make much of a difference. So weigh in on that. But also, senior administration officials tell me that a strike within Iran is highly, highly unlikely. We heard from Jake Sullivan over the weekend on Meet the Press. He's refusing to take anything off the table, but it was pretty clear that's not being actively considered. So with that as a given, President Biden has said more's coming. What do you think it is?
Yeah, first on the timing, I think these operations are complex and challenging. They require setting the theater, making sure our force posture is appropriate, making sure our allies and partners are witting of our plans, and making sure the air rights and airspaces are cleared so that we can operate with some very heavy platforms, including, as referenced, B-1B bombers flying all the way from Texas. And so this is a complex military operation against 7 targets. And so I think a couple days to plan it out and to execute it, I think the proof is in the pudding. They were professionally executed, and they had good effect. Look, are more coming? I do think more are coming. Jake Sullivan said so yesterday during his interviews. And the bottom line is Jim Stavridis is exactly right. Whether we deter the mercurial mind of Iranian leader cannot happen overnight. We're going to have to show the Iranians that not only do we have the capacity to hit more targets, but we have the will. And that's why it's so important that we've said that there's more to come and that we maintain a very robust force posture. Take a step back. What's going on in the region? Iran is trying to disrupt the 3-way peace deal between Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. We were on the cusp of having an agreement, a historic agreement, the peace to end all peace, to use a historic reference, really a way to have Arab-Israeli reconciliation on a scale not seen probably since the Camp David Accords. And Iran said that is an anathema to our interests, and they unleashed not only Hamas, but Hezbollah, the Houthis, these proxies in Iraq and Syria. And I think this is going to go on for a while until the Iranians get the message.
Admiral, it's a little confusing here, though, what is actually the strategy and what's the end goal of these strikes. It seems as if, though, they're just strikes to do strikes without any real purpose. You see, Iraqis are killed, Syrians are killed, no Iranians have been killed. So what do you get the sense, what is the overall grand strategy here of the Biden administration in the Middle East, other than these one-off strikes when we're targeted?
Yeah, let's start with Jeremy's excellent comment a moment ago, which is part of this, kind of going from the inside out here, is to create the conditions that move us toward a growing rapprochement, ultimately diplomatic relations between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Israel. When we bring our friends together, we emerge stronger. To do that, you have to knock back the Iranians who are determined to cause us to withdraw. Moving out a little bit, this is also part of an alliance strategy, Elise. Today, we have, I think, at least 15 nations have signed on Operation Prosperity Guardian, which is the Red Sea, and keeping the global economy open. That's a significant part of the strategy here. And then thirdly, as we look at capability, as we talked about a moment ago, every time with these strikes you take away capability, you are reducing the possibility of further attacks. I think this is actually a well-planned and escalating strategy that is moving up that ladder. And ultimately, are we going to have to send jets over downtown Tehran? Let's hope not. And if we want to avoid that, the way to do that is to continue to move up on this ladder of escalation. I think the administration's got it about right.
Retired 4-star Admiral James Stavridis and NBC News national security analyst Jeremy Bash, thank you both very much.